Alright, welcome everyone. Today we are going to look at this article. There is a soul, but not a transcendent one. And this is the article. First, we are going to read the article, then we will go to the Reddit comment and see the comments. There is a soul, but not a transcendent one. Consciousness is not the hard problem that philosophers say it is. Whenever someone comes and say it is not a hard problem that we have been known, that we know that is a hard problem. And okay, so when I say it is a hard problem, it means we do not understand. So that what a hard problem is. It is not there to be solved. Like you don't have to go and solve the consciousness. So it is a hard problem if we are looking from the point of view of understanding, that we don't fully understand it, how it works. So but let's see what his point is. Yeah. Famously, the philosopher David Chalmers has said that the hard problem of consciousness is explaining how the brain's biological process produce an individual subjective experience. Let me highlight this part. How the brain's biological process produce an individual subjective experience. Okay. Yeah, this looks like a hard problem. Let's see. In a recent Noema essay, Carlo Rovelli argues that this is not the hard problem it is said to. Okay. For the Italian theoretical physicist, making such a metaphysical distinction is a legacy of Western philosophy, long religion-inflicted history, which treats the soul and body as separate domains, even though they are in reality of the same substance. Which treats the soul and body as a separate domains. Religion-inflicted history. However, it is not only Western philosophy. I think the West has little bit less religious than the other parts. But I don't completely, which treats the soul and body as separate domains. We have to analyze this article a little bit in more depth, even though they are in reality of the same substance. I think if you are saying that there is such a thing called soul, and then firstly, you are establishing that there is a thing called soul, and then soul is coming from religious point of view. It is not coming from as much from the scientific point of view. And then you are accepting that premise, and now you are saying they are soul and body are the same thing, or they are made up of same substance. But why do you have to accept that there is such a thing called soul without sufficient evidence? You don't have any evidence, you accepted it. And then you, at the same time, you are saying this Western philosophy is inflicted by religion. But when I'm reading this, it looks like you are also inflicted by that same philosophy, because now initially you are not rejecting soul. You are saying they are same sort of. And how do we even come to the soul? I mean, okay, the article is about soul, but the article starting from this quote about consciousness. So maybe they are saying soul equals to consciousness, which I think is not a true equivalence. You can't do that. You can't simply say that these two things are same. Let's read more. As Rowley puts it, today's debate on consciousness reflects our human fear of belonging to the same family as inanimate matter and losing our dear transcendent souls. At the heart of this discourse is a misreading of what scientific understanding is all about. For Rowley's, scientific understanding is not extraneous to experience. It is entirely about experience. What does this phrase mean? Extraneous to experience. Let's see, what does it mean? Let's open Gemini. Gemini can help with this. And let me also check out the dictionary meaning of extraneous. Extraneous means coming from the outside and not forming a necessary or relevant part of the subject or matter under consideration. Coming from the outside. Basically, I think this quote even apply here? Scientific understanding is not extraneous to experience. It is entirely about experience. So it is not about something that you cannot experience. It is about the things that you can truly experience. I think this is what it means. Empiricism, the grounding of knowledge in experience, is not alternative to science. Okay. Empirism means that The knowledge that you're getting is you are getting through the experience. This is what let me search this.
Empiricism
Is a philosophical theory stating that all knowledge originates from sensory experiences. Okay, yes. Is not alternative to science. It is a main component of science traditional conceptual ground. It is misleading to see science as often naively portrayed as a direct account of an absolute and objective world, observed and described from its outside. If we think in this manner, we introduce dualism. No surprise then that we find dualism down the road. An irreducible gap between subject and object. Here, Rovelli emphasizes the quantum outlook he has been so influential in expositing. We, subjects of knowledge and understanding, are not outside the world. We are part of it. Okay. Our theories and knowledge are embodied tools to help us navigate the real world, not disembodied views on reality from the outside. They are themselves aspects of the very world they describe. Our understanding, like our feelings, perception, and experience, is a natural phenomena. Our understanding, like our feeling, position, and natural phenomena. I don't agree with this statement. Understanding is something you. So, in my experience, understanding is not the same as feeling, perception, and experience. Understanding, to understand something, to understand something complicated or even simple, I have to stick with that thing. I have to be curious about that thing, and then I should have some motivation to go in depth of that thing, and then I create some kind of understanding. But feelings is not the same thing as understanding, and it is not a natural phenomena. Feeling is a natural phenomena, but understanding is not very natural. I have to push sometimes myself a lot to understand something. I don't think so. And understanding is not a natural phenomena. We can just see. I don't think so here understanding is the right word. And experience, how the experience is natural phenomena. It's like, I don't think so. These 3-4 things, understanding, feeling, perception, and experience, we can put under the bucket of natural phenomena. I don't think so this would be fair thing to do at all. It is here where confusion about the heart problem sets. Okay, first of all, I think this article assumes that consciousness and soul are the same thing. And I think not really. You don't have to use the word soul for consciousness. If you are speaking about consciousness, you can speak about it without using the word soul, and I think everyone will understand it. So let's read more. Where the confusion begins. It is here where the confusion about the heart problem sets in. The source of the confusion about consciousness is the initial step. Treating knowledge, consciousness, and qualia as something to be derived from scientific picture understood to be about something else. Right, Rule. These need not be derived from the scientific picture because the scientific picture is a story about them. Experience is not over and above the process that happen in the brain, as Chalmers assumes. Experience is the name we give to what happens in us when these phenomena happen in us. It is the name of those phenomena, not something else. The dualism between a first-person description of experience and a third-person scientific account of the same is a normal perspective difference. I really, I'm not really convinced about what is written here. Let's read more. The material soul. What this means for Rovelli is any account is approximate, has blind spot, and is realized within reality. So it is embodied in a part of the same reality. There are hinges between a representation and where it is embodied. And this may be a singular point in a representation, but it is not a metaphysical gap. It is not an explanatory gap. So which gap it is? Consciousness is a hard problem. We are reading about that and why it is not a hard problem. Then we are faced with this quote because the author of this article has decided to quote him. And I think this is like something is missing in this quote, or some previous knowledge is required to understand this quote. But basically, I don't know what to make out of this. Let's read more. As Rowell sees it, the real heart problem is understanding more about the functioning of our brain and body. This is compatible with the notion that we do have a soul, but not a transcendent one, different in kind of the rest of the nature. We have souls. We have inner self. We can create ourselves as transcendental subjects in the canine sense. We have emotions and spiritual life. We experience qualia. These entities are not obtained by addition to a physical state but by subtraction from a complete physical account. I don't agree with anything that here they have said. If you think about it, you are basically doing the same thing that you oppose in the first paragraph, where you said, if you are saying there is a something called soul is not a scientific concept, and you can't try to defend that concept, and you can't create a different kind of a soul which is a material soul. Now all of a sudden you added the adjective to the word and you changed the whole meaning of the soul. I don't think so this is fair to, this is fair. I mean, so I don't agree with this concept of the material soul. So I don't agree with this concept at all, and I would just say that this has to be studied more, or whoever these people are, maybe have to rethink about all that. I don't agree with a thing called the material soul. As Rowald notes in closing, earth is not a metaphysical different from the heavens. Living beings are not metaphysically different from inanimate matter. Humans are not metaphysically different from other animals. The soul is not a metaphysical different from the body. We are all parts of nature like everything else in the sweet spot. Why can't you just say that there is no soul? Why do you have to say all this? I don't get it. Just say that we don't believe in soul. There is no scientific evidence that we have a soul. But it is different from having consciousness. You have a consciousness. We all have consciousness. If you say there is a soul, then you are going into the religious construct and saying, okay, then everything is on the table. Then everything that religions have, everything is back on the table. And you can start having a discussion, is there a hell? Is there a heaven? And you are falling into the trap of same thing that you complained about. Religion inflicted history, and this is what you are doing. I think this article is not very well organized, in my opinion. It is organized very well, but I think there are a lot of quotes and there are less of opinions, multiple quotes from multiple places, and I don't completely like this style of writing, and I think we are mixing few of the topics here. But anyways, this was a good read. I mean, look, this type of readings help us to illuminate and talk about things. Now, this phrase, the material soul, either you go with a soul or you don't go with a soul. Why do you have to create this new type of soul? Maybe call it something else. Maybe coin a different word for it. The reason that you are going for it, in my opinion, is because you want popularity. This is not a real science. I mean, if you are just using the words for sake of popularity, then I think it is not a real science. So this article is just quoting another article. Where is the added value? I completely agree with this person. I don't know where is the value really. Even I don't understand. In their Google Ads account. Yes, I mean, that makes sense. I appreciate a healthy respect for science, but this is just, I don't like the definition of something, so I'm going to change it. Exactly. This is what it is. You can't ignore the widely held belief and culture around the world and just redefine and say, I have solved it. First of all, they are talking about soul. There is a soul, but not a transcendent one. But they started the article with consciousness is not the heart problem that philosophers says it. I think this person is referring to that. Also the line here, Rovelli emphasizes the quantum outlook he has been so influential in expositing, gives me the idea that they may not be as respectful of science as they claim, and are just couching personal beliefs in that language to try to give it a weight, physics or not. Yes, totally. I do agree. I don't believe in a concept of soul, but I also don't believe in a concept of material soul. Also the line here, gives me the idea that, I have already read this. I mean, I also think the article isn't very good, but redefining word is an important part of doing philosophy though. I don't agree with this. Redefining word is not an important part of the philosophy, because then, let me read the reply. I won't say redefining as much as conceptual analysis. Redefining words to win an argument is still the mote and belly or lexical fallacy. Yes. It's quite common in ancient sophism and from modern podcast debaters. Yes. Modern podcast debaters are very good at it. Usually in philosophy, definitions are an important component of the principle of charity. A good philosopher will usually accept their interlocutor's definition and argue partly from that perspective rather than simply say, your definition is wrong. Think positive and negative liberties. The discussion is not about who defines liberty the correct way. Both sides generally give the other their definition but then shows whatever they are referring to over there is not really what we want. I think it's similar thing here. He is not redefining soul. He is actually saying all the things that matter about soul's talk are valuable except for transcendental part. If you held on to dear life that a soul had to be transcendental, then he would probably ignore the argument from definition and accept that souls as you convince them simply don't exist. No, I don't agree with this. You can't take away the main ingredient from some food. You can't take away bread from the burger and say this is a burger, So you can't take away transcendental part from the soul and then say this is the soul. What is left is a soul. You can't do that. That is the main part of the soul. You can't do that. Redefining word is an important. Okay, I don't agree with this at all. Adjusting definitions of thing is part and parcel of how science works. Okay, let's say adjusting definition of thing is part and parcel of how science works though. Think about concepts like atom, chemical element or species. As we learn more data about how the world actually is, we had to calibrate our categories to be closer to where we found the joints of nature to be. That is a different thing because these things are coming from strictly from science. These things have no other meaning to anyone else. I don't find this article very convincing either, but it is not inconceivable that there might be something that it makes sense to call a soul. If someone's like, we are going to refer to this class of persistent pattern of activation in this cerebral concept as soul, I won't think that was a great choice of term, but they are not talking about nonsense. This is not philosophy. Is a soul not something perceived rather than something that lives and dies with one person? Because we still talk about people after they die, meaning that it is something associated with it. There is no soul, just the consciousness, which is the feeling of acknowledgement produced by billions of neurons. There is no soul, just the consciousness. I do agree with this point personally. However, the article is not debating about that at all. Article has given us a new concept called the material soul, and I don't agree with this personally at any level. This feels like a really interesting middle ground between strict materialism and traditional spirituality. I mean, why do you need to have a middle ground between these two things? It shocks me that anyone even slightly reading philosophy consider the hard problem of consciousness and anything but a historical artifact. Yeah, it shocked me too. Commenting solely based on what I read this article and not knowing more about this Rowley character, it seems he shares the rational skeptical viewpoint that the nature of the universe but doesn't want to say out loud that souls are nonsense. Either that or there is some error in translation leading to the extraordinary claim of us having souls. Okay, this person got a lot of downvotes. Thanks for watching. Bye everyone.